Well, let's say something goes wrong with your Mac OS computer or one of your friends or somebody you need to support. We've got Usama Muhammad who's going to tell us more about some of the steps to take when troubleshooting Mac OS. How you doing, Osama?
I'm doing good. How are you doing today?
Doing great, doing great. Who do you work for? And let's start talking about Mac OS.
Yeah, I currently work for Best Buy under the Geek Squad as an advanced repair agent.
Okay, so you've seen hundreds of Macs come on in for help, right?
Yep, I've seen a lot of them.
All right. What are some of the most common issues having to do with the software?
Biggest common issue you'll ever see, even on like a close friend's computer, is just outdated software. So you're on operating systems from 4 or 5 years ago that aren't compatible with a lot of programs and applications that you use today.
And so what happens is that somebody comes in, a user comes into the Geek Squad and says, "Hey, I can't launch X application or my networking isn't working right." So they see these ancillary, these secondary issues, but the root cause is a need of an update or something like that. Is that fair enough?
Most of the time.
Okay. Okay. When it comes to updating, what are some of the things that you then have to do? What are some of the typical moves? Just get them a good current Apple ID and away you go, or there are other things?
Yeah, so current Apple ID is the biggest one.
Okay.
Anything before Big Sur, if I'm not mistaken, needs an Apple ID for the OS to be installed. You can just download it off of Google, so it's not too hard. And then the other ones would be if they have stuff like Adobe softwares or programs that aren't compatible with newer updated software. We'll
Uh,
need to inform them that it's either you keep, the $2,000 to $3,000 Photoshop program you bought 10 years ago, or your computer works a lot better.
and some people do make that choice, right? It's like, oh no, that is my Adobe system, and I'll stick with it, or okay, I'll move on up in the world.
Yeah, I've seen instances where clients just buy a new computer outright and keep their old computer just outdated just so they can keep the software.
When it comes to identity management or account management, what are some of the tools that you often have to work with?
With Macs, it's pretty easy. It's just the iCloud. As
Okay.
long as they're logged into an iCloud, everything is super straightforward. If they're not, then it's just a local account on the computer.
Mhm.
And that just makes everything a lot more easier to work with.
Right. Let's talk about backups, things like that. What are some of the steps that people need to be taking, or from a support perspective, that you work with backups?
Yeah, there's two different ways for you to go with a backup for Macs. It's either you plug in your hard drive and you just do the drag and drop method, which you
Okay.
can do everywhere else. Or with Mac OS, they have a proprietary software called Time Machine.
Mm.
You'll just have to make sure you format it correctly in exFAT, and then it essentially takes a copy of the whole computer and puts it on the hard drive, and then it just updates that backup every few hours.
When it comes to things like a keychain, for example, tell us about that, how it works, and some of the things that you need to work on with that.
Yeah, so Keychain is essentially just a password keeper for Macs. It encrypts the passwords, and you create a separate password for that that's connected to the computer, and
Okay.
it's all saved on your iCloud essentially. So you can even see it on your iPhone if you want or an iPad. The one downside about it though is if it's super outdated, like on OS X Lion, and you're trying to get the computer to Big Sur, Keychain is just going to give you a lot of certificate issues and whatnot. It's going to want you to log into iCloud, and it's just going to keep on popping up.
When it comes to performance and trying to figure out performance, what are some of the tools that you use, or how do you go about doing that to get visibility into what's going on in that system, in that Mac OS?
Yeah, so I would take two steps essentially. The first I would see is on the top left corner of any Mac, there's a little Apple logo. You
Yeah.
can check about your Mac, and I'd be able to see what hardware and software I'm working with. And then I can go into Activity Monitor at that point, which is a counterpart to Task Manager for Windows. I can see how the hardware is running, what programs are running, what's being utilized, and whatnot.
Mac OS and Windows systems tend to work and play well with each other really well in terms of file format compatibility, disk format compatibility. You ever seen issues though with the FAT and exFAT and things like that?
The only issue you'll ever see nowadays, because everything's becoming super standardized,
Mhm.
is whether it's formatted for Windows read write, Mac read only, or vice versa.
Right.
Or with a time machine backup, that hard drive, you won't be able to use it for a Windows computer until you wipe the hard drive and reformat it back to Windows, like NTFS.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your insights, Osama, about Mac OS and some of the issues that you fixed over the years.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you very much.
You bet, man.